right, ready to dive deep. Today, we're going to be looking at marriage and family,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to be approaching it through the lens of the book of Genesis,
Okay.
which is pretty interesting. Even if you're not particularly religious, this perspective can offer some valuable insights
Yeah,
into the historical and cultural significance of marriage.
absolutely. It's amazing how these ancient texts, can reflect some pretty timeless truths about just human nature and our deep-seated need for connection.
Yeah. So one of the things that always jumps out in Genesis is that statement, it is not good for man to be alone.
Right.
Why do you think that's the first thing that God declares is not good in the entire creation story?
That's a great question. And if you think about it, I mean, everything else,
Yeah.
light, sky, the earth, animals, everything is deemed good up to that point.
Right.
But a solitary human,
Yeah.
there's a problem there. It speaks volumes about our inherent design. We're just wired for connection, belonging, community.
Yeah.
This isn't just some like feel-good notion. It's deeply rooted in our biology and our evolution.
Yeah.
Our ancestors, the ones who collaborated and formed bonds, those are the ones who survived
Right.
and thrived.
So it's like this need to connect. It's almost like it's embedded in our very DNA.
Yeah.
But how does that then set the stage for marriage as we understand it?
That's a great question.
Hmm.
That's where the creation of Eve comes in.
Yeah.
And the symbolism here, it's really fascinating. She's not formed from the dust of the ground like Adam was, but from his rib, a part of him, close to his heart.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's about more than just the physical origin story, right?
Absolutely. This signifies a deep inherent equality and partnership. It's
Yeah.
not these two separate beings just randomly thrown together. They share a common origin.
Yeah.
It's highlighting a deliberate connection.
Mm.
And, this is a stark contrast to so many other creation myths where women are often depicted as subservient
Yeah,
or created as an afterthought.
Yeah, totally. It's not like that here.
Yeah.
This biblical account, it elevates women to a position of respect and shared responsibility.
Well, and, even just thinking about how Adam reacts when he first sees Eve.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, oh, cool, a helper.
Mm.
He says, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh.
Right.
It's almost like he instantly recognizes her as like an integral part of himself.
Exactly. He sees her as his equal, his companion, someone to walk alongside him in life.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really beautiful depiction of just this unity and purpose,
Right.
really setting the stage for the establishment of marriage as this divine institution.
So speaking of divine institutions,
Yeah.
let's dive into how Genesis actually defines this whole marriage thing.
Yeah. So Genesis 2.24 beautifully outlines this.
Okay.
It says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh."
Mm-hmm.
So right there we have the three pillars of marriage as this text sees it: unity, love, and partnership. Okay, so break that down for us. What do those pillars actually look like in practice beyond just the poetic language?
Right. Well, let's start with unity. It's about far more than sharing a physical space. It's about two individuals becoming one physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Right.
And this is where that concept of covenant comes into play.
Okay.
It's not just a legal contract, it's the sacred bond
Right.
that really reflects the unity we see in God's own nature.
That's a powerful image. So it's about a level of connection that goes, way beyond splitting chores and bills.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so what about love? Isn't that kind of a given in any marriage anyway?
Well, love in this context, it's less about fleeting feelings
Sick.
and more about a deliberate choice,
Yeah.
a sacrificial commitment to the other person's well-being.
Hmm.
So, think of love as a verb,
Right.
not just a noun.
I like that. It's about consistently choosing to act in a loving way, even when it's hard.
Yeah,
So actions speak louder than words, huh?
absolutely. It's about serving each other, communicating kindly, and just showing patience, even when it's difficult.
Yeah.
And then we have this concept of partnership, which builds on that foundation of unity and love. Think back to Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
They were tasked with working together, being stewards of creation as a team.
So it's about sharing goals, offering mutual support, and facing life's challenges side by side. It's interesting how this kind of emphasizes that marriage isn't just about personal fulfillment. It's about contributing to something larger than yourself.
Precisely. It's about two individuals coming together to build something meaningful and lasting.
But that brings up an interesting question.
Sure.
What about those of us who aren't married? Do these principles only apply to romantic relationships?
Well, that's where things get really fascinating.
Oh,
These core principles, unity, love, and partnership, they're like universal keys.
okay.
They can unlock deeper connections in any relationship.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. How do we apply these outside of the traditional marriage context?
Okay, so think about your family relationships,
Oh,
your friendships, even your professional collaborations.
yeah.
Imagine approaching them with that same spirit of unity. Working towards shared goals, valuing each other's contributions,
Right.
and being quick to forgive.
So instead of just kind of existing in these relationships, we're actively working towards that deeper sense of unity.
Exactly. It transforms how we approach those connections.
Okay.
And when we bring love into the equation, not just warm, fuzzy feelings, but that active, sacrificial love,
Yeah.
it becomes about supporting and encouraging the people in our lives, being present for them, celebrating their wins, and offering a listening ear when they struggle.
Yeah. It's about moving beyond those just kind of transactional interactions
Mhm.
into something much richer and more meaningful.
Yes. And then there's partnership.
Yeah.
Imagine applying that concept to your family, your friends, your colleagues. What would it look like to truly partner with them? Pooling resources, supporting each other through thick and thin?
Wow. I'm already starting to see how powerful this framework can be. It's like
Yeah.
we're taking these ancient wisdoms
Yeah.
and applying them to our modern lives,
Absolutely.
even if we're not religious.
It's about recognizing that these principles have resonated for centuries
Yeah.
because they tap into something fundamental about the human experience.
But I have to ask, if marriage is supposed to be this reflection of divine unity and love,
Right.
what happens when things go wrong? Life isn't always sunshine and roses, right?
Yeah, that's a really crucial question.
Yep.
And it's one we'll explore further as we continue our deep dive.
Okay.
Because even in this, seemingly perfect creation story,
Yeah.
we see things go awry.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, stay with us. We'll be right back to unpack more of these fascinating insights from the book of Genesis.
Absolutely.
So we left off on that big question, like, what happens when those ideals of unity and love get challenged in a marriage?
Yeah.
Because life, it's not always smooth sailing, right?
No, definitely not. And I think the text we're looking at, the book of Genesis, it acknowledges that reality. Remember, Adam and Eve's story doesn't end in paradise, right? There's temptation, there's disobedience,
Right.
and ultimately they get expelled from the Garden of Eden.
So even in this, like, seemingly perfect creation story, we see those cracks start to appear.
Exactly. And I think that's so crucial because it sets up a template for understanding marriage as a journey,
Okay.
not just a destination. It's going to involve navigating those challenges, making mistakes, learning to forgive,
Yeah.
and growing together.
Yeah, it makes me think about that covenant aspect of marriage that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
It takes on an even deeper meaning, I think, when you consider that commitment is really tested during tough times.
Exactly. A covenant isn't something you just break at the first sign of trouble. It's a promise to work through those difficulties together, to grow and learn from each other through those experiences. It's about recognizing that every challenge, every disagreement, it's an opportunity to deepen the connection.
Yeah. This has given me a whole new appreciation for, like, the depth and complexity of this whole marriage concept.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding the right person, right?
Right.
It's about becoming the right people together.
That's beautifully put. It really is about two individuals choosing to embark on this journey of growth and transformation together. And those three pillars we discussed, the unity, the love, and that partnership,
Yeah.
they become the essential tools for navigating those inevitable storms that life throws at us.
So let's say a couple's facing a real challenge, right?
Mhm.
Communication breakdown, financial stress, maybe even infidelity. How can these principles actually help them find their way back to that sense of unity when it feels like everything is falling apart?
Well, unity in the face of adversity, it requires some pretty radical honesty and some really open communication.
Mm.
It's about creating a safe space where both partners feel truly heard and understood, even when they've messed up.
That sounds incredibly difficult, especially when those emotions are running high. How do you even begin to create that kind of safe space?
Yeah. When you might be feeling really hurt and angry, it takes a conscious effort to kind of step back from that blame and defensiveness, to approach the situation with humility and a genuine desire to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
And what role does love play in those difficult moments?
Mm-hmm.
Is it even possible to, like, feel loving when you're dealing with, like, pain and resentment?
Yeah, that's where that sacrificial aspect of love comes in.
Okay.
It's about choosing to act in the other person's best interest,
Yeah.
even when your own feelings are screaming something else.
Yeah.
Remembering that love isn't just a feeling, it's a commitment to act in a loving way,
Yeah.
regardless of your current emotional state.
So it's about putting their needs before your own,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's incredibly hard.
Exactly. It might mean extending forgiveness when it feels undeserved,
Right.
offering support even when you feel drained, or simply listening patiently when you'd rather just walk away. It's that commitment to their well-being, even when it's inconvenient or
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Okay. That's a high bar, but I can see how it's essential for a relationship to weather those inevitable storms.
Yeah.
But what about partnership? How does that concept come into play when you're navigating those tough times?
Well, partnership is all about teamwork.
Okay.
It's about facing the challenge together, pooling your resources, and supporting each other through the ups and downs. It's about remembering that you're on the same side, even when you disagree.
So instead of pointing fingers, it's about saying, okay, we're in this mess together. How do we get out of it?
Precisely. It's about brainstorming solutions, making compromises, and working towards that shared goal. It's about celebrating the small victories and offering encouragement when the other person is feeling defeated. It's about being each other's biggest cheerleader,
Yeah.
even when you're both feeling exhausted from the climb.
Yeah. I'm starting to see how these three principles aren't just these abstract ideals.
Right.
They're practical tools for building, like, a resilient and fulfilling marriage.
Mm-hmm.
They offer a roadmap for navigating the inevitable challenges that life throws our way.
And the beauty of it is that these tools, they aren't limited to romantic relationships.
Right.
They can be applied to any relationship where we want to create deeper connection and understanding.
Yeah.
Whether it's with family members, friends, or colleagues, these principles, they can really transform how we relate to one another.
That's what I love about this deep dive. We're taking these ancient principles from the book of Genesis and finding ways to apply them to our modern lives. Regardless of our religious beliefs or backgrounds, It's about recognizing that enduring wisdom and finding ways to integrate it into our personal growth.
It's about taking the wisdom of the past and using it to build stronger, more loving relationships in the present. And what's even more fascinating is how these principles, they can extend beyond our personal relationship and into the wider world.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We've explored how these principles work on an individual level.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on how they apply to communities, societies, even the world at large.
Right.
How can these ideas from Genesis help us build a better world?
That's a question worth exploring, and one we'll delve into as we continue our deep dive. Because imagine a society that embraces these principles of unity, love, and partnership on a much grander scale. Imagine the possibilities.
All right, listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back to explore how these powerful ideas can help us create a more connected and compassionate world. Okay, so we're back and ready to expand our deep dive.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how these principles, the unity, the love, the partnership, they have implications, beyond just our individual relationships.
Absolutely. These ideas from Genesis, they have the potential to impact communities, societies, even the world as a whole.
So how do we take these ancient principles and apply them to something as complex and honestly as messy as our global society?
Well, just imagine a society where unity, it's not just about couples or families, but it's about diverse groups coming together, regardless of their background, their beliefs, or their political stance,
Yeah. It's like taking that core idea of becoming one and scaling up to a massive level.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do we bridge those divides when there's so much conflict and polarization in the world?
Well, that's where love, in its most expansive and perhaps challenging sense, becomes absolutely essential. Not just that romantic love between two individuals, but that radical, unconditional love that extends to all of humanity, even to those we disagree with.
I think that's the part that a lot of people struggle with. How can we possibly love people who hold views that, we find offensive or harmful?
Well, it's not about condoning their actions or their beliefs. It's about recognizing the inherent worth of every human being. Even when we disagree vehemently with their choices or their perspectives, it's about choosing compassion over judgment, seeking to understand
Yeah.
rather than to condemn.
So it's about, like, separating the person from their ideology.
Exactly. It's
Mhm.
about listening with empathy, attempting to understand their life experiences and how they arrived at their conclusions,
Right.
and finding that common ground that connects us all as
Yeah.
human beings.
That makes me think of, like, how often, especially in, like, the digital age,
Mm-hmm.
we dehumanize those that we disagree with.
Right.
It's so easy to just reduce people to, like, labels
Yeah.
or sound bites.
Right.
This concept of radical love almost feels like an antidote to that, like, that toxic tendency.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that everyone has a story.
Right.
Everyone's on their own, unique journey.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, even when, and perhaps especially when, it's difficult.
And what about the concept of partnership? How does that play out on, like, this larger societal scale?
Well, think about the global challenges that we're facing today, right?
Yeah.
Climate change, poverty, inequality, conflict.
Yeah.
These are issues that they demand collective action, collaboration on a global scale. We need nations, organizations, individuals all working together in true partnership
Right.
to find solutions.
So it's like that marriage idea of shared goals and mutual support, but, like, applied to the whole world.
Exactly.
Like, we're all in this together, whether we acknowledge it or not.
Precisely. It's about understanding that we're all interconnected,
Yeah.
that our actions, they have ripple effects,
Right.
and that we have this shared responsibility to care for our planet and for one another. It's about choosing collaboration over competition, realizing that we can achieve far more when we work together than when we're constantly striving against each other.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how these, seemingly simple ideas from the Book of Genesis
Yeah.
have such profound implications for how we live our lives, how we build relationships,
Yeah.
and how we can work together to, create a better world.
And the most important takeaway, perhaps, is this.
Yeah?
It's not good for man to be alone.
Right.
That statement applies not just to individuals, but to societies and nations.
Mm-hmm.
Our interconnectedness, our need for belonging,
Yeah.
it extends outwards from our personal relationships to
Right.
that global community that we all inhabit.
That's such a powerful reminder.
Mhm.
So for our listeners out there, here's a final thought to ponder. If marriage, at its core, is designed to reflect those divine attributes, like unity and love, how can we, both as individuals and as a society, embody those qualities in all our interactions, creating a more harmonious and fulfilling world for everyone?
That's a challenging but a beautiful call to action.
Yeah?
It invites us to tap into our deepest capacity for connection, for compassion,
Yeah.
and for collaboration. And perhaps in doing so, we can begin to heal those fractures within ourselves, within our communities, and within the world as a whole.
Until next time, fellow deep divers,
Right.
keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to build a world where it truly is good for no one to be alone.